everyone! I am your favorite Foxy writer, Brandy Ackerley, and today I am still way too excited about having my debut earlier this week. Oh, I have been streaming for at least 6 months now, but I still got so nervous. Oh, I must have spent a good hour or two earlier that day, just making certain that everything was in place and ready to go. Despite that, there is always scuff. And trust me, I had plenty of that. First, all the work I did setting up my account beforehand was completely for naught, as YouTube wouldn't let me connect to using my OBS to the original link that I created for it. I had to create a second link and a second, entire video, and then tweet out that one for everyone after I'd already started. I'm not certain if that stuff happened because I created the link on a different computer without using my OBS that I would be using for the actual video. I will have to see. I have other things to test as well, since apparently OBS doesn't hold more than one company in it at a time, which means that every time I go back to Twitch from YouTube, I have to re-put in my information there, and every time I go back to YouTube from Twitch, I'm going to have to re-put in my information there. So, what I'm saying is, if you see me creating a stream one day called Test, assume that those ones will be short and sweet, and I'm probably testing one of those things. Beyond that, I was super nervous, as usual, but also, as usual, no one cared about my scuff but me, which really helped me to relax and get into chatting with chat, as you can see. It helped me get through my entire introduction way more comfortably. It was super fun, and I will, of course, be continuing. I'm not certain about doing it on Sunday evenings like I did, but for now, I'll probably keep that going on that day. I hope to see some of you at my next one. For those of you who were there, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that you were able to make it over. For those of you who weren't able to, thank you for watching later. Oh, you guys have made my week. You have all made my week. Thank you. Thank you again. Now, last week, Kazunaha and Richard looked around the ship and found the captain's rooms. They also found a small amount of treasure in it and had planned to go into the hull of the ship looking for more. Now, on with the show. Okay, let me just pull up the book. And there we go. Perfect. Are you sure you don't need any help, Kuzu? Richard asked. Kazunaha, she corrected him. She didn't stop trying to open the door. There had only been one other one on the main deck, and the damned thing had taken on water, enough to warp it shut. Kazunaha seemed determined to open this one herself. She'd been working on it for nearly 5 minutes now. Finally, she gave a yell, and the door popped open. As he'd expected, she wasn't ready for it, and fell back into his arms. He loved the feel of her body. She was soft everywhere he liked his partners to be, while still having enough muscle to be a challenge. Ugh! Thank you, she said. His fingers squeezed her, and she flashed him an exasperated look. He shrugged, chagrined, and helped her to stand. Before they left, he was going to find time to push her against the hull and have his way with her. He would have done it already, but she'd been distracted since they'd found the ship. Kazunaha didn't let him pull completely away. She caught his hand and put it on her belly while she looked into the stairway. It was black as pitch down there, and Richard stepped beside her, shaking his bottle of light again. It would only last a couple more hours, less if he kept shaking it to keep it bright. Considering the expense, he wanted to get as much use out of the thing as possible. The stairs were steep, even for the ships he'd been on before. They were about 3 feet long and nearly 4 feet wide, and only went down 6 feet. It also smelled of old fish and stale water. Nothing dangerous, if unpleasant. He handed her the bottle and started down the stairs. They were moist and bowed under his weight. He bounced on the last one, just to be sure it would hold him. The floor sagged, but held. We'll have to be careful. No sudden moves or jumping around if we can help it. The roof didn't open below the hull, and was only an inch or so above his head. The boat he'd fled G's on had been much larger. He tried to take a deep breath and felt his chest constrict. He shivered and shook the light again. He wouldn't let a shadow in a tiny space set him off. It smells salty. I thought it would be mustier, Kazunaha said. The roof was over a handspan above her head, and she looked completely at ease. For just a moment he envied Kazunaha's diminutive stature. She didn't seem to notice as she slipped around him, never looking at one area for longer than a moment. A Costas design. This will be easy. Richard hadn't expected Kazunaha to know anything about ships. Personally, he'd never seen a layout like this, but she was right. It would be easy to navigate. There were 8 rooms, 3 to each side, one door leading to the bow and another to the stern. He was pretty sure the one behind them had been a galley, if the rusted pot sitting just inside the circle of light meant anything. You've seen this type of ship before? Of course, it's a junk, like you said it would be. Why? He was a little confused. I said it would be a caravel. She shrugged. It's the same thing, essentially. There are a few differences, but they're the same size, just made in different parts of the world. These are the types they make in C&Q. My father thought that we should at least know our way around one. They have higher ceilings, usually, but only the one level below deck. Each room is designed to be watertight. If a hole gets blown through it, they can still sail with ease. It makes them near unsinkable. Watertight? How do they stay in these rooms when they're traveling? She shrugged. They don't. Costas usually take on cargo rather than passengers. The crew would stay on deck, even in storms. Richard thought about that. Watertight should mean that there will be less water damage overall. It is one of the good things about the design, she said. Which should we open first? She looked around. All the doors looked the same. Simple, unpainted wood. They would have been smooth, but the years had left them looking pitted and raw. One of them, the door at the bow, had been left partially open. How about that one, at the end of the hallway, she suggested, pointing at the open one. We can work our way back around. Richard shrugged. It's as good a place as any. The door opened easily, revealing a floor swarming with small blackish-blue crabs. The creatures' eyes glittered, shiny and alien, but they fled the light, running down a hole in the floor as quickly as they could. The only other thing in the room was 2 skeletons, and a pile of ratty clothes that had probably belonged to the men once, but were now being used as nesting material. Kazunaha drew a breath at the sight of the crabs fleeing en masse, but didn't say anything as she stepped in the room gingerly behind him. Richard wondered if she would go to the bodies again, even though it was clear they had nothing of value on them. He walked over to the hole the creatures had gone through. It was only just about big enough for a grown adult to step through, and led to a pit filled with water. He grinned. A hidden compartment. That would be where the expensive contraband items were. With his light, he could just make out some boxes, bloated and covered with barnacles and other deposits. He pulled up the closest one, a 2.5-foot crate, while the crabs made the seabed below appear to move as they scuttled out of its way. There's nothing of value over here. Anything down there? Kusunoha said. She'd been looking through the clothes. The bodies hadn't moved, but he knew that Kazunaha was still unnerved having them so close. He gestured to the crate. I found something. I think it might be contraband items. It only took a few minutes to open. Inside there were pale red, blue, and green packages. They had probably been vividly colored, before 60-some years of soaking had removed all but the most stubborn of the color. Kazunaha helped him drain the water without disturbing the other sacks inside, and then Richard pulled one out gingerly. The sack held no cohesion, and almost fell apart in his hands. Put down one of the bags, Kuzunoha. This is going to fall apart quickly. I think it's some sort of paper, not cloth at all. She put a small bag down, and Richard dumped the disintegrating bag into it. It was filled with blackish gray sand, tightly packed. The mixture was gritty and odorous. Oh, fireworks! I wonder if they still work, Kuzunoha said brightly. Richard wondered just what in the consort's name a firework was. He hazarded a guess. The sand burns, then? Are they worth much? If they weren't, he'd leave them in an instant. The grit stuck to his hands where he touched the sand, and even soaked its stank of sulfur and other harsh chemicals. He would have attributed the cave's stink to the strange powder, but with the water's warmth he was certain that even if they hadn't seen it yet, there had to be a vein of hot springs water pouring in from somewhere. She shrugged. Well, there are some in Hidan who would pay for them, but only the wealthiest. They're quite rare. My father would have to order them in for the Shuntabun in Tijaman. He didn't even bother to ask what a Shuntabun was. Most likely it was some sort of festival for the dead. Most cultures had one, and Digimum, the month of fading fire, was known to be when the ghosts and creatures of the dead returned to cause mischief. So they may be worth quite a bit, if they still work. Is there a way to test them? Kuzunoha gave another shrug. I'm not an expert. I can try some out and see if it still burns. The idea of lighting something on fire to see if it still worked, when he had no idea what it did in the first place, seemed like a bad idea. A favorite phrase of an old friend came back to him. Just enough knowledge to be dangerous. We'll take this box with us to test, then. If it burns, we can come back for the rest. She nodded, and together they carried the box up to their packs. Just let me put the book down. And head to the other room. Boom! Boom! Oh, I have to admit, I've been having a heck of a busy week. I'm used to streaming 2 or 3 times a week, but in the last 7 days, I've streamed double that, and I'm having another stream later tonight, of course. Now I would love this to be the state of being, but as it is, this part-time job became a full-time job this week. Most people don't know the time and the effort that goes into every stream. After all, they see you playing a video game and chatting with friends. How difficult can it be? The truth is that for every hour you see a streamer online, they have probably spent 1 to 2 times that amount of time prepping for the stream. In my case, it's things like drawing emotes, creating viewer rewards, posting more to get my name out there, watching other VTubers, checking the news specifically for the games I play, the places I stream, who's doing something new. Is there a trend I need to get into? Something I can jump in on? Who do I know that I can spend some time collabing with? And then, of course, I spend time streaming, which, while super fun and something I don't plan on dropping anytime soon, is still work. No matter how much you love your job, it's still a job. As a streamer, it's my job to make sure that my viewers are entertained, that they're chatting with everyone, that I'm keeping an eye out for trolls, or anyone else who would ruin the experience, while also keeping an eye on the game I'm playing, and making it interesting, as I said. I have to make sure that even if nobody is in the stream, that I'm constantly chatting with myself, in case a viewer stops by not to chat and just wants to watch. It is a job, and especially as it's becoming a job that I start to love as much as I do writing, I can't look at it with rose-colored glasses. I have to be honest with myself about its downsides, as well as its upsides, to be honest about why I love it, and all of that. To note that even if I don't think of it as a job sometimes, it is still that, a job, and one I'm doing out of love, and rather than money for right now. But I think that's where I'm going to end it today. If you liked this episode, or just agree with what I've said here, please leave a like. If you want to let me know what you thought about the episode, if you stream, or why you consider streaming a job or not, let me know in the comments below. If you're feeling generous, you can share the video with your friends or subscribe. Finally, if you're hoping to spend a bit more time with me, you can wait for me for my next stream here on YouTube, or you can find me on Twitch, or you can even check for me on Twitter or Instagram as well. Links are on the site. Until next time, have a lovely day, everyone!